वाजमिमां प्रसुप्तां सञ्जीवयत्यखिलशक्तिधरस्वधाम्ना अन्यांश्च हस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम् प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम्.
Because Maya, one is the Ajnana Rupini Maya. There you are bringing Jnana also. That is also part of the Maya. Knowledge is also part of the Maya. But with the knowledge you are removing the ignorance. So, knowledge is also part of the Maya. That Maya is removing Maya itself. So, Svanashena hi harshada. It delights in our own destruction. Does it answer you? So, in thinking that something beyond Maya, it is not the right concept. You have to think Maya is the entire creation, appearance of the creation. And when the Maya goes, there is no question of any spatial, anything beyond or anything like that. Truth is the beyond, transcending Maya. That's all. Ascharya-rupini Maya Sanashena hi harshada. In my table, in my office in the ashram, underneath the glass, there used to be one picture with one line. Recently I am remembering because somebody quoted that our Ramaswamy is there, he used to like it very much, so recently he quoted. There it was written that Roshopi nirmaladhyam ramaniya eva. Roshopi nirmaladhyam ramaniya eva. That is, Rosha means, it is not Krodha actually, but agitation or a Rudra, an intense murti. Roshopi nirmaladhyam, those who are pure soul, that is pure minded. Nirmaladhya, whose dhi, buddhi, mind has become purified, nirmala. For them, the Rosha also is very Ramaniya. So when a knower scolds somebody apparently angrily, it is called Ramaniya. It's very enjoyable. Because there is no kalmasha in that, there is no impurity in that. It is also purity, just like the dance of Shiva. How many artists conceive of the Nataraja Murti? He is destroying, but it is not a destruction like our protesting public also. There is no impurity in it. Destruction is part of it. Creation and destruction go together. Without destruction there cannot be any creation. Without Mrityu there cannot be Janma. Everything is duality. So, the Roshopi nirmaladhyam ramaniya eva. It is from Bhamini Vilasa. This is interesting because he has written this recently in our inauguration of the book, a great association when it was being inaugurated in Siri Fort in Delhi. First, I think, spoke, the chief guest spoke. Then Sridharanji spoke, he was the guest of honor. Then I spoke. Now, I was very emotional, as you saw the other day with the children. I became emotional and shedding profuse tears, not being able to speak. That day also I became very emotional, particularly by whatever they said also. So naturally, in chanting that Swarajya Samrajya, which I generally start with, I chanted something else and I got forgotten that one line came and the other lines got all confused. So I smiled and said that I had become very emotional. So I have confused the whole shloka. Then again remembered and shloka I chanted. So seeing that in live stream, Ramaswamy had written that in your table it used to be written that Roshopi Nirmaladhyam Ramaniya Eva, like that Vismiti Api Nirmaladhyam Ramaniya Eva. He has written Vismiti Api, what dot dot dot. So he enjoyed that Vismiti. Do you get the meaning? Vismiti means forgetfulness. The forgetfulness means because I forgot that part. But he said it was very enjoyable that you were shedding tears and forgetting the shloka. Or any other question is there on the same line?
देहाभ्यास कैसे कम किए जाते हैं? देहाभ्यास
देहात्मा देहात्मा बोध कम करना चाहते हैं?
दुख का कारण रीजन फॉर मिजरी.
I wanted to reduce it before going to the ashram. Before joining the ashram, I had visited the ashram twice. The ashram was not like this, as you are getting very good food. Are you not getting very good food here? No?
Yes, Swamiji.
Our ashram was not like that. At that time, it was extremely austere. No breakfast, then 11 o'clock you will get every day, 365 days almost, except the function days, the same item. No menu change. यहाँ जो इंदिरा और नम्रता करते हैं, सोमवार ये है, मंगलवार ये है, बुधवार वो है. Every day new things, and we are every day tutoring the cook that how to prepare, how to. वो सब कुछ बात ही नहीं था. It was every day some gruel and something, and there will be everything in coconut and coconut oil. So if you don't like, you cannot take. That's all. So when I came as a visitor, we went to the ashram in 1986 May for 15 days, and then again in 1986 December for about a month or so. I may be wrong, all those data I am not very clear, somewhat like this. If Ma had been there, she would correct. No this, no that, and all that. Ma is not there, so I can't say anything. So then 87 May we joined the ashram. So before joining, I was thinking that if the food troubles me, what will happen? I am going and I have to take whatever is there. So as a test of reducing that food dependence, for 3 months I took food without salt and only boiled item. Boiled item without salt. Within 2 weeks I found that it is absolutely simple and it is very tasty also, no problem at all. We become slave to our taste. So you can easily, when I went there, it was fine. I had no problem at all. Before that itself I understood that it's not difficult. So anything, the body consciousness being too much or so, you have to give some practice where you find that no, you are not slave to the body. You are not slave to the taste or the comfort or anything of the body. If you feel that you have become used to air conditioner and you cannot sleep without that, take some austerity measure. Go to a place where it will be very hot or very cold and go without any comfort. Sleep on the floor for some time. It's always possible. Nothing is difficult.
Now, yesterday, the one major concept which we discussed in detail is the Sangha. I don't know how much you have been able to relate it, but it has to be, because Sangha is one of the greatest contribution of Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita, Sangha, the concept of Sangha plays a great role. So yesterday we were trying to analyze threadbare that what is it that when we are to explain Sangha, that Vishaya Dhyana Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsaha Sangasteshu Upajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha. So we all speak about desire. It's very common. But here it is clearly stated that the desire is not the initial thing. Dhyayato vishayan pumsah sangasteshu upajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha. That means the desire kamaha is coming from sangha. And where sangha is coming from? Dhyayato vishayan. By the vishaya dhyana. That means our constant engagement with the objects. Now there I tried to clarify that it is not really our engagement with the objects that causes the sangha. While doing any work, we have to get involved with the objective situation, with the objects as much as possible. The more wholesome our involvement with the objective situation, better will be our performance, better success will be for the action. So it is not really the involvement with the object that causes the sangha. It is the involvement with the subjective result, that by thinking about the object there is an indulgence in the mind, a bhogecha which we define, a bhoga pravritti, to enjoy the object. That means thinking, even when we are thinking of any object, say a car or a mobile, it is not really the car or a mobile that is causing the problem. It is I want to enjoy a better mobile or a better car, and that thought that what I am going to enjoy, that is called the bhoga pravritti or bhogecha. Bhoga means enjoyment. Pravritti means tendency to enjoy. It is the bhoga pravritti which is causing the problem. So, for the world, as far as the world is concerned, even for a knower, the world is the same. He is engaged with the same activities, almost the same activities in the world. But he is not developing sangha because he does not have the delusion that he is going to enjoy the world. He knows that all the enjoyment is within and the Atma is the greatest enjoyment. I am not to gain anything from the world at all. This is the greatest power, the strength and the fulfillment of the knower. He never expects anything from the world. He goes on doing things. Is it clear or not? Or shall we go more into it? So to say that, I had mentioned that the example of reading a book or seeing a film. Suppose it is a tragedy. I am reading a tragedy. Or I am seeing a tragic film, which will generate lot of suffering in the mind. There we are able to shed profuse tears seeing the film or reading the book. But I want to say that are we not enjoying that suffering? I am deliberately using the word enjoy. You may have some reluctance. But yes, we enjoy suffering. Otherwise, why do you pay money to go to the film and see the suffering? Why do you buy the book and read it? It is actually an enjoyment, it is appreciating, because all the rasas, all the emotions in human life, we should be able to contain and enjoy. An author, say like Valmiki or Vedavyasa, how much of pathos they have produced, they have generated in their writing. Unless they feel the pathos, will they be able to? And why are they generating? Because suffering enriches us. When you see a film where suffering is there, that suffering will enrich you. Will it not? Anything like that, because your mind is taken, seeing a fun film will not enrich you so much. You may enjoy, you may laugh and come back. There won't be much of enrichment. But when you are seeing and reading about pathos, about suffering of human life and all, you go on thinking about it. What is this suffering? And it enriches you. You understand the word enriching. It enriches us. So you call it enjoyment, you call it enrichment. The fact is that we are not trying to get away from suffering there. Whereas the same thing as it is written in the book or as it is shown in the film, if it happens in our life, we try to run away from that. We are not able to get enriched by the same happening in our life. समझ में नहीं आ रहा. So where is the difference then? It is only that Sangha element. When it is in our life, you are immediately relating with the situation, you are relating your fate, your enjoyment of the world. Even when the husband and the wife is dying, what will happen to me? What will happen to me? What does it mean? That means you are worried about your fate without the service of the other person. So it is your fate you are connecting. Whereas when it is happening in the film, your fate is not connected. So the Sangha is not there. So as such, suffering is enriching and is enjoyable. It is the Sangha which makes us avoid suffering or run away from suffering. That is why the poets have written, Marane tuhu mama shyama saman. Rabindranath has written. Maranare tuhu mama shyama saman. How can he call Mrityu as the most beloved? It is only when the mind is free of the Sangha. Not clear? I am saying because some questions were there in the morning, so I am repeating it. But any time repetition, it is not going to be excess. Because you have to, if I don't repeat, you are supposed to repeatedly think about it. By that only it will have the clarity. But mostly people do not do. So it does not become a sadhana. The sadhana is this repetition. Another point we discussed yesterday, which was a subsidiary point, which is not really the same point, which also some people had not understood, is that I said that the more the depth of your mind, the more the capacity of the dimension, the vastness of your personality, you are able to contain more of suffering and happiness also, blissfulness also. I said that even in spirituality, people get ecstatic. They lose their self-control by getting some blissfulness. And they think it is the greatest devotional fulfillment. I said that it is not so. That is only initial, and we become overwhelmed by the bliss because the depth of the mind has not increased. In fact, as we grow in spirituality, greater and greater bliss also we will be able to contain with a peaceful mind, not showing some disbalance or getting out of control. Do you get it? It depends on the capacity of the mind. Suppose you have a shallow tray which has got depth only 1 centimeter. What is the maximum amplitude of the wave you can generate there? 1 centimeter down and 1 centimeter up, say 2 centimeter if it is. Then 1 centimeter down, 1 centimeter up. Beyond that, if you agitate the water, it will spill over the tray. The tray will not be able to contain. But in a sea where the depth can be 10 kilometers depth, even if you generate a wave of 100 meters, then also the wave is only on the surface of the vast proportion, the large proportion of the water is absolutely peaceful. Is it not? In 10 kilometers, only 100 meters is disturbed by the wave. And it is able to contain that wave. To explain that, I said that in the sea, where the depth is more, huge waves are there. The same waves when they are coming to the shore, to the beach, because the depth is coming down, it is becoming shallow. The same waves, they become breakers. They break into, they are no more able to contain the waves, so they break. And finally, at the end of the water, you find they are all small ripples spreading around. It is only because the depth has become less. So the more our mental depth is, more suffering, happiness, and all emotions we will be able to contain. That is why these great authors like Vedavyasa has generated so much of different emotions in their compositions. In writing, unless the author is able to contain such emotions, he will not be able to express it. So, in spirituality, what we do, it is not just having samadhi and knowing, it is not so. There is no end to spiritual growth, we should understand. It is not one fine morning we get up and see that I have become a self-knower. No. There is no end to it. You can go on increasing the dimension of it. Only thing is that after a certain time, when you become fulfilled, that means there is no further questions, nothing. There is no, truly speaking, sadhana. That means there is no struggle or anything. It becomes natural. So, a well, when you fill it with water, the well is fulfilled. It is filled. It is full, we say the well is full. But if you increase the capacity of the well and make it a big pond and put more water, it will contain more water and it will remain full. If you make it a lake, it can contain still more water. So if you compare the three, all are fulfilled or are full. But the capacity of the lake is vast compared to the well. This capacity, the more and more we come, our mind becomes soul, this capacity increases. As in spirituality, what is happening is a change in the mind. The soul never undergoes any change. Soul remains whatever it is. It cannot change. It is not in the objective field. It is a subject. No change can be there in the soul at all. The consciousness, universal consciousness, the Chetana or Chit we call, there cannot be any change. What changes by spiritual sadhana is our mind, intelligence, body, everything. Body is less, but mind and intelligence main. Body also changes. They are undergoing the change. And by that what is happening? The mind is becoming more and more the self, the soul. So finally we say that pure mind itself is the soul. This statement you will find everywhere. The Vishuddha Manaha, the pure mind itself is the soul. What is happening is the mind is becoming, by our sadhana, the mind is getting purified, the mind is expanding, purified. Finally it becomes the soul. So there is no end to this expansion process. It goes on expanding. More you apply, it goes on expanding. Nature will take the knower also to different situation where he has to expand further. As an example, I was saying when Swamiji he started the religious reformation movements, the malpractices in the temples, he was fighting against it. In my book, that segment, that chapter is the biggest chapter. 50 pages we could not, there was much more to be given, but I had to restrict it. But even then, in a book of 230 pages, 50 pages are covered by that. Normally that chapter you will not find in any spiritual knower's book. Is it not? Is there any spiritual knower in whose book you have found such a chapter? Fighting with the police, arguing with the police, arguing with the collector, going to this, going to that, getting arrested. But not with a less knowledge or as a social reformer, as a spiritual reformer. So when he started this, most of the devotees, they renounced their guru. They left their guru. They were not able to take it that why Swamiji, such a spiritual person, will get into these movements. And really there was nobody to help. When we went to the ashram, it was the movements were in full force and there was nobody to help. So not knowing Malayalam, singing Malayalam songs composed by Swamiji, we were walking through the remote villages of Kerala for the procession, in the procession journey. So it is because they could not understand the dimension of the saint. That what makes a peaceful saint of the kind of dimension he is, of the dimension of the knower. When he takes to this movement, how he is taking to it? Where is that transcendental level that he never gets affected by getting into the movement or getting arrested? Such a person will not be affected at all. As long as you are getting affected by any situation of the world, you have not become the unaffected soul fully. Although in your samadhi you are the soul. The purpose of spirituality is not to take you to samadhi and become the soul there, and when you come back you are in the same soup. You are troubled by the world again. You are troubled by everything happening in the world. The purpose of spirituality is to unify you with the divinity, that the whole world is actually divine because it is floating in that consciousness. It is appearing in that consciousness. To be the same along with the world, floating in the consciousness, that is the purpose of spirituality. It is not to take you to a trance and you have known the Brahman in your meditation and you are coming back to the world behaving in the same manner. No. It is to change the world, make it divine. All actions will remain same, but his divinity will change them into divine action. So we will go to the text. Is it explained properly, whatever about the dimension and capacity? So the 2 points are different. One is to not having the Sangha, so that all emotions can play in you without affecting you. Another is the how much you can take, that depends on your capacity. The more depth your mind takes, more you can contain. So as we advance in spirituality, the sudden ecstatic conditions will be less and less. It will be more of a peaceful experience. In great blissful experience also, he will be peaceful and contained. We will chant from Krishna's statement from 4th verse onward. Nishchayam shinu me tatra
Nishchayam shinu me tatra
tyage bharata sattama
Tyage bharata sattama
tyago hi purusha vyaghra
Tyago hi purusha vyaghra
trividha samprakirtitah
Trividha samprakirtitah
yajnadana tapah karma
Yajnadana tapah karma
natyajyam karyameva tat
Natyajyam karyameva tat
yajñodanam tapaschaiva
Yajñodanam tapaschaiva
pavanani manishinam.
Pavanani manishinam.
Now here in this chapter, this Yajna, Dana and Tapas, they are playing a very important role. I have explained it the other days also. But basically, the life means activity. Life is action. Even if you sit tight, not doing anything outer also, it is an action. Sitting without doing anything is also an action. There cannot be a life without any activity. And when your body is sitting motionless, the mind may go on doing all the activities. Breathing also is there. There cannot be life without activity. So life means karma. It is activity. Now what Bhagavad Gita proposes is that you make all the action, convert them, transform them into yajna. So you cannot transform them into the Vedic yajna because you are not doing Havana. Those days, that was the main action of the people who were given to studies Vedic culture. They were doing jaga and jajna only. They were not involved in fighting. Kshatriyas were doing the fighting. The kings were ruling. But the yaga, jajna, etc. was the work of the Brahmanas. So for the Shastras were for them also.